Elena's hands wouldn't stop shaking as she gripped the steering wheel. 3 hours of driving, and she was finally here. The Crystal Bay Resort stood before her like something out of a dream, all gleaming white walls and tall palm trees swaying in the ocean breeze. She could see the blue water sparkling behind the building, and for a moment she forgot to breathe. 10 years. 10 years since David had brought her to this place when it was just a small inn with peeling paint and a handful of rooms. Back then, she'd been working double shifts at the diner, and he'd saved up for months to take her there for the weekend. Now look at it. The place had transformed into something she barely recognized. She pulled into the parking lot and found a spot between a shiny Mercedes and a car that probably cost more than her childhood home. Her old Honda looked sad sitting there, like it knew it didn't belong. Elena checked her reflection in the rearview mirror one more time. No makeup, just her face. Her sundress was her favorite, the blue one with tiny flowers, but the color had faded from too many washes. She'd packed it carefully in her canvas bag, along with David's anniversary gift and a change of clothes. The lobby took her breath away. Marble floors stretched out like an ice rink. So shiny she could see the reflection of the crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling. Everything smelled expensive, like roses and something else she couldn't quite name. Leather and money, maybe. Women in designer dresses glided past her, their heels clicking importantly. Men in suits that probably cost thousands stood in small groups, talking about business deals and golf handicaps. Elena suddenly felt very small. She walked up to the front desk, her sandals making soft squeaking sounds on the marble. The woman behind the counter was stunning, her hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, her makeup perfect like a magazine cover. She glanced at Elena and something flickered across her face. Not quite disgust, but close. "Can I help you?" The words were polite, but the tone wasn't. "Hi, yes. I have a reservation. Elena Martinez. My husband is already checked in." "David Martinez?" The woman's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched up. She typed something into her computer, her long nails clicking against the keys. Click, click, click. Each sound felt like judgment. "I'm not showing anything under that name." "That's okay, maybe it's under his name only." "David Martinez? Room 412? More typing, more clicking. A long pause that stretched out like taffy. "I'm sorry, we don't give out room numbers to unauthorized persons. Security policy, but I'm his wife. I'm surprising him for our anniversary." The woman looked at Elena's hand. No ring. Elena had taken it off before her morning shift at the community center where she volunteered. She'd been helping paint the children's room and didn't want to ruin it. The ring was in her bag, safe in its little velvet pouch. "I see." The woman's voice dripped with something that made Elena's cheeks burn. Before Elena could explain, a man in a sharp gray suit appeared. His name tag read Gregory Ashton, resort manager. He was tall, maybe 50, with silver hair that looked professionally styled and cold blue eyes that swept over Elena like she was a bug on his expensive marble floor. "Is there a problem here, Rebecca? This woman is asking for a guest's room number." "I'm not just some woman," Elena said, her voice smaller than she wanted it to be. "I'm David Martinez's wife. I'm here to surprise him for our anniversary." Gregory looked at her. Really looked at her. His eyes traveled from her face down to her faded sundress, pausing at the frayed hem, then down to her sandals with their worn straps. His nose wrinkled slightly like he'd smelled something unpleasant. "Ma'am, this is a 5-star establishment. We have certain standards." Heat flooded Elena's face. "Excuse me? I'm sure you understand. Our guests expect a certain atmosphere. We simply cannot have—" He didn't finish, but he didn't need to. Elena understood perfectly. She wasn't dressed right. Didn't look right. Didn't smell like roses and money. "I have a reservation," Elena said again, pulling out her phone with trembling fingers. She found the confirmation email David's assistant had sent her. "See right here. Elena Martinez. Check in today." Gregory barely glanced at the screen. "I'm sure there's been some mistake." "Perhaps you have the wrong resort?" "No mistake. My husband owns—" Elena stopped herself. David didn't like it when she told people about his money.
He said it changed how they treated him, treated her.
But maybe now she needed to say it. "My husband is a very successful businessman. He's staying here and I'm meeting him." "Of course." Gregory's smile was thin and sharp. "And I'm sure your husband would prefer to meet you somewhere more suitable to your circumstances." The words hit like a slap. Around them, other guests had started to notice. A woman in a white pantsuit whispered to her friend. A man in golf clothes stopped walking and just stared. Someone was holding up their phone, recording. Elena's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. "I'd like to speak to your supervisor. I am the supervisor. And I'm asking you politely to leave before we have to take further measures." "Further measures? I have a reservation." Gregory snapped his fingers and 2 security guards appeared like magic. They must have been waiting nearby. Big men in black uniforms with blank faces. "Gentlemen, please escort this woman from the property." "Wait, no. Please." Elena's voice cracked. "Just call my husband. David Martinez, room 412, just call him." But Gregory had already turned away, dismissing her with his back. The security guards moved closer, one on each side. "Ma'am, please come with us." "I'm not doing anything wrong," Elena said, but her voice was shaking now, her whole body shaking. "Ma'am, we don't want to cause a scene, but it was already a scene." Everyone in the lobby was watching now. Phones were out, cameras pointed at her like weapons. Elena could imagine the videos already uploading to social media. Woman thrown out of fancy resort. Some people would defend her. Most would judge. They'd look at her clothes, her face, her bag, and they'd understand why the resort didn't want her there. The guards weren't rough, but they were firm. They guided her toward the door with hands on her arms, professional but unyielding. Elena tried calling David, but her fingers were shaking so hard she could barely unlock her phone. When she finally got it open and pressed his name, it went straight to voicemail. "David, please," she whispered into the phone. "Please pick up. I'm at the resort and they're making me leave. They don't believe I'm your wife. Please call me back." The automatic doors slid open, and suddenly she was outside in the hot sun, the beautiful building behind her, the security guards watching to make sure she didn't try to come back. Elena walked to her car on legs that didn't feel like her own. She got in, closed the door, and finally let the tears come. They poured down her face, hot and bitter. She'd been so excited this morning, so proud of herself for planning the surprise. And now she felt dirty, ashamed, wrong. She looked at the resort through her blurry tears. Somewhere in there, David was probably in a meeting, his phone on silent. He had no idea his wife had just been treated like trash, thrown out like garbage that didn't belong. Maybe she didn't belong. Maybe that's what hurt the most. This was David's world now, had been for years. Fancy resorts, expensive suits, people who judged you by your shoes and your handbag. She'd always known she didn't quite fit, but she'd thought love would be enough. She'd thought if David loved her, nothing else mattered. But sitting in her old Honda, makeup-free face wet with tears, Elena wondered if she'd been fooling herself all along. David Martinez sat at the head of the conference table, trying to focus on the contracts spread in front of him. The numbers were good, better than good. The Crystal Bay resort chain was finally his, 15 properties across the coast, including this flagship location where everything had started 10 years ago. "If you'll just sign here, Mr. Martinez, we can finalize the transfer," the lawyer said, sliding another document across the polished wood. David picked up his pen, but something felt off. He couldn't shake this weird feeling in his chest like something was wrong. He'd silenced his phone for the meeting, but now he felt the urge to check it. "One moment," he said, reaching for his phone. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. The sellers exchanged glances. This was a multi-million-dollar deal. You didn't just stop in the middle to check your messages, but David's instincts were rarely wrong. His phone screen lit up with notifications. 3 missed calls from Elena. 1 voicemail. His stomach dropped. He played the message and his blood ran cold. "David, please. Please pick up. I'm at the resort and they're making me leave. They don't believe I'm your wife. Please call me back." Her voice was shaking. She was crying. His Elena, who never cried, who was the strongest person he knew, was crying because someone at his resort had hurt her. David stood up so fast his chair rolled backward and hit the wall. "I need to go." "Mr. Martinez, we're in the middle of, my wife needs me. We'll finish this later." He was already moving toward the door, his phone pressed to his ear as he called Elena back. It rang and rang, no answer. His heart pounded harder with each ring. David took the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator. He burst into the lobby and stopped, scanning the space. No Elena. A few guests turned to stare at the man in the expensive suit practically running through the resort, but he didn't care. "You," he pointed at Gregory Ashton, who was standing near the front tea desk, talking to another guest. Where is she? Gregory looked startled. I'm sorry, sir, where is who? My wife, Elena Martinez. She was here. Where is she? The color drained from Gregory's face. Behind him, Rebecca, the desk clerk, looked like she might faint. Mr. Martinez, there was a woman here earlier, but she didn't have proper identification and she looked what? David's voice was dangerously quiet now. The lobby had gone silent. Everyone was watching. Sir, please understand we have standards. The woman was dressed inappropriately for our establishment and we couldn't verify her story. We had no way of knowing. You threw my wife out. It wasn't a question. David could see it in Gregory's face, in the way Rebecca had gone pale behind the desk and the nervous shuffling of the security guards standing nearby. We were simply maintaining the resort's reputation. She refused to leave when asked politely, so we had to. David's phone rang. Elena. He answered before the first ring finished. Elena. Where are you? In the parking lot. Her voice was small and broken. I'm sorry. I should have dressed better. I should have. Don't apologize. Don't move. I'm coming to you right now. He ended the call and turned to Gregory. You're finished here. Clean out your office. Sir, if you would just let me explain. Explain what? That you judged my wife based on her clothes? That you had her removed by security because she didn't look wealthy enough for you? That you humiliated her in front of everyone? Gregory opened his mouth, closed it again. Around them, guests had their phones out again. This was going to be all over social media within the hour, but David didn't care. Let them record. As of approximately 15 minutes ago, I purchased this entire resort chain. Every property. I own this building and everything in it, including your job. You're fired. Security will escort you from the property. How does that feel? The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Gregory's face went from pale to red to pale again. Mr. Martinez, please. I was only doing what I thought was right. We get all kinds of people trying to. My wife is not all kinds of people. She's my wife. And the fact that you couldn't see her worth because of her clothes tells me everything I need to know about your character. David turned to the security guards. Which one of you touched my wife? The two men looked at each other. The shorter one spoke up. Sir, we were just following orders. We didn't hurt her or anything. We just walked her to the door. Did she look scared? The guard hesitated. Yes, sir. And upset. David felt his jaw clench. Find me the security footage from the last hour. I want to see exactly what happened. He didn't wait for a response. He walked through the lobby, through the automatic doors, into the parking lot. The sun was bright and hot, and he had to shield his eyes to search for Elena's car. There. The old Honda she refused to let him replace, parked between two cars that probably cost more than most people's houses. He could see her sitting in the driver's seat, her head down. David's heart broke. He walked to her car and tapped gently on the window. Elena jumped, startled, then saw him. Her face crumpled and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. She unlocked the door. David opened it and knelt down beside the car, not caring that his expensive suit pants were touching the hot pavement. Hey, he said softly. I'm here. Elena couldn't speak. She just shook her head like she was trying to shake off the whole terrible experience. I'm so sorry, David said. This never should have happened, never. I should have worn something nicer. I should have. Stop, Elena, look at me. She raised her eyes to his. They were red and swollen from crying. And seeing her like this made David want to march back inside and fire everyone who'd been in that lobby. You did nothing wrong. Nothing. Do you hear me? Those people were wrong. That manager was wrong. You are beautiful and perfect exactly as you are. But they looked at me like I was nothing, like I didn't deserve to be there. Then they're idiots who don't deserve to work for me. Elena blinked. Work for you? I bought the resort. The whole chain. I was in the middle of signing the papers when you called. She stared at him. You bought. I was going to tell you tonight. It was supposed to be a surprise. Remember this place when we first came here? When it was just that little inn with the squeaky beds and the owner who made us pancakes every morning? A tiny smile flickered across Elena's face. Mrs. Chen, she was so sweet. She sold the inn 5 years ago and it became part of this resort chain. I've been working on this deal for months. I wanted to buy it and give it back some of that heart it used to have. Make it feel like a place where anyone could come and feel welcome, not just people with money. Oh, David, I was going to surprise you tonight. Tell you. I bought the place where we had our first real vacation together. Maybe rename it after you if you'd let me. Elena laughed, but it came out as half a sob. That's ridiculous, is it? Elena Martinez Resort has a nice ring to it. She shook her head, but she was smiling now, even through the tears. David reached up and wiped her cheeks with his thumbs. Come inside with me, please. Let me fix this. I don't want to go back in there. Everyone saw. Everyone was recording on their phones. I'll probably be a viral video by tomorrow. Woman kicked out a fancy resort. They'll make memes. Then let them. Let the whole world see what happened, and let them see what happens next. Let them see me standing beside my wife, who is worth more than every person in that building combined. Elena took a shaky breath. I felt so small in there. I know. And I'm going to make sure you never feel that way again. Not here, not anywhere. But first, I need you to come back inside with me. Not because you have anything to prove, but because I want everyone to see the truth. I want them to see the woman I fell in love with. The woman who worked 3 jobs to put herself through college. The woman who volunteers at the community center every week because she believes everyone deserves kindness. The woman who packed me lunch every day when I was starting my first business and we were so broke, we ate ramen for dinner. You remember that? I remember everything. I remember how you never complained. How you believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. How you made me want to be better, do better. You think those people in there are better than you because they have money and designer clothes? Helena, they're not fit to tie your shoes. She was crying again, but different tears this time. David stood up and held out his hand. Come with me. Let me show everyone who you really are. Elena looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she looked at the resort building, still imposing and beautiful and intimidating. Finally, she took a deep breath and placed her hand in his. Okay. But if they try to throw me out again, I'm taking off my sandal and hitting someone with it. David laughed. Really laughed and pulled her up and into his arms. That's my girl. They walked back to the resort together, hand in hand. Elena's canvas bag on her shoulder, her faded sundress moving in the breeze, her worn sandals slapping against her feet. She didn't look any different than she had an hour ago. But now she had David beside her, and somehow that made everything different. The automatic doors slid open. Every head in the lobby turned to look at them. David wrapped his arm around Elena's shoulders and held her close. Everyone, this is my wife, Elena Martinez. Remember her name, because she's going to be working with me to transform this entire resort chain, and if anyone has a problem with that, they can pack their things and leave right now. The silence in the lobby was absolute. Gregory was gone, already escorted out. Rebecca behind the desk looked terrified. But a few people started to clap. Then more, and more. Elena looked up at David in shock. He just smiled at her and kissed her forehead. Welcome to your resort, Mrs. Martinez. The suite was beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the ocean, and the sunset painted everything gold and pink. Elena sat on the edge of the massive bed, still feeling out of place despite everything David had said downstairs. Her canvas bag looked wrong sitting on the designer chair. Her sandals looked wrong on the plush carpet. David was on the phone with his lawyer, pacing by the window. Yes, I want it in writing. Gregory Ashton is terminated effective immediately. Full investigation into any other incidents. I'll call you back. He ended the call and turned to Elena. She was staring at her hands. Hey. He sat down beside her. Talk to me. I don't know what to say. Say what you're feeling. Elena laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I feel like I don't belong here. I felt it downstairs, and I feel it now. This room probably costs more per night than I make in a week at the community center. You volunteer there. You don't get paid. Exactly. David, look at us. Look at this place. Then look at me. I am looking at you. I see the woman I married. The woman I love more than anything in this world. The woman who embarrassed you today. David's eyes flashed. You didn't embarrass me. Never think that. Those people embarrassed themselves. They showed their true colors, and it was ugly. Elena picked at a thread on her sundress. I knew this would happen eventually. I knew one day I'd walk into your world and someone would look at me and see exactly what I am. The daughter of immigrants. The girl whose mom cleaned houses and whose dad worked construction. The woman who buys her clothes at thrift stores because she donates most of her money to the youth center. Elena, no, let me finish. She took a deep breath. We met, you were different. You were just starting out, working crazy hours, eating cheap takeout. We were on the same level. But you grew, David. You built an empire. And I'm so proud of you, so proud. But I didn't grow with you. I stayed the same. Same values, same priorities, same simple life. That's what I love about you. Is it? Or is it what you loved about me 10 years ago? Because sometimes I think you're holding on to a memory of who we were, not who we are now. David was quiet for a moment. Then he stood up and walked to his briefcase. He pulled out a folder and brought it back to the bed. I want to show you something. He opened the folder. Inside were photos. Old photos that Elena hadn't seen in years. There was one of them at the diner where they'd met. She was wearing her waitress uniform, and he was in jeans and a t-shirt that had seen better days. They were both laughing at something. I keep this in my office, David said. I look at it when I have tough days, when I'm dealing with people who only care about money and power and status. I look at this photo and remember what matters. He pulled out another photo, their wedding day. They'd gotten married at City Hall because they couldn't afford anything else. Elena wore a simple white dress from Target. David wore his only suit. They were grinning like idiots, completely in love and completely broke. This is my favorite photo in the world, David said. Not because of how we look, because of how we felt. We had nothing. $27 in our bank account, but we had each other and that was everything. Elena's eyes filled with tears again. She'd cried more in the last few hours than she had in years. David pulled out more photos. Their first apartment, barely bigger than this bathroom. The ratty couch they'd found on the street and carried up 3 flights of stairs. The Christmas they could only afford one small tree from the lot selling rejects. You think you didn't grow with me? David said. Elena, you're the reason I grew at all. Every risk I took because you believed in me. Every time I wanted to give up, you wouldn't let me. When I started my first company and worked 16-hour days, you brought me dinner and made sure I remembered to eat. When I lost my biggest client and thought I'd have to close everything down, you held me and told me we'd figure it out together. I remember that night. You were so scared. I was terrified, but you weren't. You just looked at me and said, "So we'll start over." We've done it before. Like it was that simple. And somehow you made it feel simple. You made me believe I could do anything. Elena wiped her eyes. I did believe in you. I always did. And I believed in you, still do. But somewhere along the way, you stopped believing in yourself. The words hit like a punch. Elena opened her mouth to deny it, then closed it again. Because he was right. When did that happen? David asked gently. When did you start thinking you weren't enough? Elena thought back. The first company party where she'd worn the wrong thing and everyone had stared. The benefit dinner where she'd used the wrong fork and a woman had laughed. The country club where someone had assumed she was the caterer. 1,000 small moments that had piled up over the years, each one chipping away at her confidence. I think it was gradual, she finally said. Little things that added up. The way people looked at me at your business events. The comments about how lucky I was to have married you like I'd won some kind of lottery. The women who were so surprised that someone like you was with someone like me. Someone like you? Elena, you have a degree in social work from Stanford. You graduated top of your class while working 3 jobs. You're brilliant and kind and strong. Those people should be surprised that someone like you is with someone like me. That's not how the world sees it. Then the world is wrong. Elena smiled sadly. You can't just change how the world works, David. Watch me. He closed the folder and took both of her hands. I need to tell you something. The truth about why I bought these resorts. You said it was because of our first vacation here. That's part of it. But there's more. Elena, I've been watching you pull away from me for the past 2 years. Subtle things. You stopped coming to business dinners. You made excuses about company events. You became quieter around my colleagues. And I knew why. Elena looked down. I didn't want to embarrass you. But you were pulling away. From me. From us. I was losing you and I didn't know how to stop it. So I came up with a plan. A plan. I've been buying businesses that had lost their heart. Companies that used to care about people but had become all about profit and prestige. I bought them and changed them. Made them about community again. About treating everyone with dignity regardless of their bank account. I didn't know you were doing that. Because I wanted to surprise you. Show you that we could build something together. Something that reflected both our values. Your heart and my business sense. He pulled out one more paper from the folder. It was a business proposal. The title read, The Elena Martinez Foundation for Hospitality Workers. What is this? Read it. Elena scanned the document. It outlined a scholarship program for people from underprivileged backgrounds who wanted to work in hospitality. Full tuition for training programs, paid internships, job placement assistance. It was comprehensive and ambitious and would help hundreds of people. David, this is incredible. But this must cost millions, yes, money well spent. I want you to run it. Be the face of it. Use your degree, your experience, your heart. Show the hospitality industry what it should really be about. Me? Run this? I'm not qualified to— Stop right there. David squeezed her hands. You are more qualified than anyone I know. You understand what it's like to struggle, to work hard for every single thing you have, to be judged by your clothes instead of your character. You're exactly who should be running this. Elena stared at the proposal, her mind racing. This is why you bought the resorts? I bought them so we could transform them together. Make them places where everyone feels welcome, where staff are trained to see people, not just appearances, where someone like you, my beautiful wife, would never be made to feel small again. That's what today was about? The whole humiliation in the lobby? God, no. That was horrible and should never have happened. But it proved my point. It showed exactly what's wrong with these places. And now we can fix it together if you want to. Elena looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who had built an empire but still kept photos of their broke, happy days in his office. Who remembered every struggle, every triumph, every moment of their journey together. Who saw the inequality in the world and wanted to change it, not just for himself but for everyone. Why didn't you tell me all this before? Because I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to hand you this foundation and these resorts all wrapped up with a bow. But life isn't perfect. Today proved that. So I'm telling you now, messy and unfinished as it is. I need you, Elena, not just as my wife, as my partner. Help me change these places. Help me make them better. I don't know anything about running a foundation. You know about helping people. That's all that matters. We'll figure out the rest together. We always do. Elena thought about the kids at the community center. How many of them dreamed of better jobs but couldn't afford the training? How many talented, hardworking people were held back because they didn't have connections or money or the right clothes? If I do this, she said slowly, I want to do it right. No cutting corners. No publicity stunts. Real change. That's exactly what I want too. And I don't want to be just a figurehead. I want to actually work. Get my hands dirty. Be there on the ground level. I wouldn't have it any other way. Elena looked out the window at the ocean, turned pink and orange by the setting sun. She thought about that girl in the diner 10 years ago, barely scraping by but full of hope. She thought about the woman she'd become, wealthy but diminished, confident but questioning everything. Maybe it was time to become someone new. Someone who took the best of both worlds and built something meaningful. Okay, she said, I'm in. But on one condition. Anything. We don't rename the resort after me. That's embarrassing, David laughed. We'll discuss it. No discussion. That's my condition. Fine, but I'm putting your name on the foundation building. David, non-negotiable. Your name, your rules, your vision. That's the deal. Elena felt something shift inside her. The weight she'd been carrying for so long, the feeling of being less than, not enough, wrong somehow. It started to lift. Not completely. Years of insecurity didn't vanish in one conversation. But this was a start. I'm scared, she admitted. What if I fail? What if I can't do this? Then we fail together, and we get back up and try again, like we always have. David pulled her close, and Elena let herself lean into him. Through the window, the sun finally slipped below the horizon, and the sky turned deep purple. Tomorrow would bring challenges, hard work, skeptics who would doubt her, people who would judge her. But tonight, in this moment, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. She felt like herself again. The sun hadn't even come up when Elena's alarm went off. She sat up in the massive hotel bed, disoriented for a moment. Then she remembered everything that had happened yesterday. The humiliation, David's defense, the proposal, her agreement to help transform the resort chain. She grabbed her phone. 6:30 in the morning, and she already had 23 emails. Newsteer. Avelled fast. David was already up, standing by the window with his coffee. He turned when he heard her stirring. Morning. I ordered breakfast. Figured you'd want to get started early. Started on what exactly? Changing everything. Elena's stomach fluttered with nerves. David, I don't even know where to begin. That's why I called an all-staff meeting for 9 o'clock. Everyone who works at this resort. Housekeeping, front desk, management, kitchen staff, everyone. That's in 2.5 hours. Exactly. So let's eat and figure out what we're going to say. Over breakfast, which was delivered by a nervous young woman who couldn't meet Elena's eyes, they planned. David showed her the investigation results his team had pulled overnight. In the past 18 months, there had been 17 formal complaints about discriminatory treatment at Crystal Bay Resort. 17 people who had been judged by their appearance, their accent, their perceived wealth or status. How did management respond to these complaints? Elena asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't be good. They didn't. The complaints were filed and then buried. Gregory probably never even saw most of them. The company policy was basically maintain standards at all costs. Standards. That's such an ugly word for discrimination. Agreed, which is why we're changing it. Today. At 8:55, Elena stood outside the resort's grand ballroom. She could hear voices inside. Hundreds of employees wondering why they'd been called in on short notice. She smoothed down her dress, a nicer one this time, but still simple, still her. You ready? David asked. No, but let's do it anyway. They walked in together and the room went quiet. Elena saw faces she recognized from yesterday. Rebecca from the front desk, pale and frightened. The security guards who had escorted her out. Other staff members who had watched it all happen. David led her to the front of the room. A microphone had been set up. Elena's hands were shaking. David spoke first. Thank you all for coming on short notice. I know you're confused. Some of you are worried. That's understandable. As of yesterday afternoon, I own Crystal Bay Resort and the entire resort chain. That means things are going to change. But before we talk about the future, we need to talk about the past. He gestured to Elena. This is my wife, Elena Martinez. Yesterday, she came to this resort to surprise me for our anniversary. And she was removed from the property by security because someone decided she didn't look like she belonged here. Uncomfortable shifting throughout the room. Rebecca looked like she wanted to disappear. But here's the thing, David continued. This wasn't an isolated incident. We pulled the records. 17 complaints in 18 months. 17 times when someone was made to feel unwelcome because of how they looked or spoke or dressed. 17 times when we failed to treat people with basic human dignity. Elena watched the faces in the crowd. Some looked ashamed, others confused, a few defensive. I'm not here to shame anyone, David said. I'm here to acknowledge a systemic problem and fix it. The culture of this resort has been toxic. We've valued appearance over character. We've judged people by their credit cards instead of their humanity, and that ends today. He turned to Elena. I'd like my wife to share her perspective. Elena? She stepped up to the microphone, heart pounding. Public speaking had never been her thing. But she thought about those 17 complaints. 17 people who had felt what she felt yesterday. That was 17 too many. Hi, she said, and her voice cracked a little. I'm Elena. As David said, I was kicked out of this resort yesterday. And honestly, I'm still processing how that felt. Humiliating, dehumanizing, small. I stood in that beautiful lobby, and someone looked at my clothes and my shoes and decided I wasn't good enough to be here. She saw some employees looking down. Good. But here's what I want you to understand. I have a degree from Stanford. I've volunteered at community centers for 15 years. I've helped hundreds of young people find jobs and build better lives. And none of that mattered yesterday because all anyone saw was my faded sundress. Elena took a breath. Now I could be angry. I could demand everyone who was part of yesterday's incident be fired. But that's not who I am, and that's not what this is about. This is about asking all of you to see people differently, to understand that worth isn't measured by wealth, that dignity isn't determined by designer labels. A woman in housekeeping uniform raised her hand hesitantly. Elena nodded at her. Ma'am, I'm sorry about what happened to you, but some of us, we get pressure from management. They tell us the resort has an image to maintain, that we're supposed to report anything that doesn't fit that image. What's your name? Elena asked. Rosa. Rosa, thank you for being honest. And you're right. This isn't about individual employees. It's about a culture that told you it was okay to judge people by their appearance. That culture is what we're changing. David pulled up a screen behind them. Here's what's going to happen, effective immediately. First, everyone in this room is going to go through mandatory training. Real training, not some half-hour video you click through. We're bringing in consultants who specialize in bias, discrimination, and inclusive hospitality. You'll learn how to recognize your own prejudices and overcome them. Some people nodded. Others looked skeptical. Second, Elena said, picking up where David left off, we're implementing a new customer service philosophy. It's simple. Treat every person who walks through those doors like they matter. Not because they might be rich, not because they might complain, but because they're human beings who deserve respect. Third, David continued, we're creating an employee feedback system. If you see discrimination, you report it. If you experience it, you report it. No more burying complaints. Everything gets investigated. Everyone gets held accountable, including me. He paused, then said the words Elena knew were coming. Gregory Ashton was terminated yesterday, not just for what he did to my wife, but for creating and maintaining a culture where that kind of behavior was acceptable, where complaints were ignored, where staff felt pressured to judge people by their appearances. Rebecca raised her hand, trembling. Mr. Martinez, I was part of what happened yesterday. I was rude to your wife. I judged her. Am I fired too? David looked at Elena. This was her call. Elena walked closer to Rebecca, leaving the microphone behind. What's your last name, Rebecca? Chen. Chen? Any relation to Mrs. Chen, who used to run the inn that was here before? Rebecca's eyes widened. She's my grandmother. Elena smiled. Your grandmother made the best pancakes I've ever eaten. She was kind to me and David when we were just starting out and didn't have much money. She made us feel welcome. She talks about those days all the time. She loved that little inn. She was sad when she had to sell it. I bet she was. Rebecca, here's what I think. I think you learned to behave a certain way because that's what your job demanded. That's what Gregory taught you. But I also think you're capable of being better. Your grandmother certainly was. So no, you're not fired. But you are going to be the first person to complete the new training program. And you're going to help us design it. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. I'm so sorry, truly, I know. Now let's make sure it never happens again. Elena returned to the front of the room. We're also launching the Elena Martinez Foundation for Hospitality Workers. It's going to provide scholarships and training for people from underprivileged backgrounds who want to work in this industry. Because talent exists everywhere. Opportunity doesn't. A young man in a kitchen uniform raised his hand. Will that program be open to current employees? I've been wanting to go to culinary school, but I can't afford it. What's your name? Tony. Tony, you'll be among the first people we consider. That's exactly who this program is for. She saw hope light up in his face, and something inside her chest loosened. This was why she was doing this. I'm going to be honest with everyone, Elena continued. This is going to be hard. Change always is. Some of you are going to resist. Some of you are going to think we're being too sensitive or too politically correct or too whatever. And if you feel that way, this might not be the right place for you anymore. We're not asking you to be perfect. We're asking you to be willing to grow. David stepped back up. We're also doing something else. Every employee at this resort is getting a raise, effective immediately. Because if we're asking you to treat people with dignity, we need to treat you with dignity too. That means fair wages, better benefits, and actual respect for the work you do. The room erupted in surprise. People looked at each other in disbelief. Additionally, Elena added, we're creating a profit-sharing program. When the resort does well, you do well. Because none of this works without you. You're the ones who interact with guests every day. You're the ones who can make someone feel welcome or unwelcome. Your work matters. You matter. An older woman in housekeeping started clapping. Then others joined. Soon the whole room was applauding. When it quieted down, David said, the training starts next week. It's mandatory. If you don't attend, you don't work here anymore. This isn't optional. We're building something new, and everyone needs to be on board. Elena added, and I'll be going through the training too, right alongside you, because I have my own biases and prejudices to examine. We all do. This is a journey we're taking together. After the meeting ended, people approached Elena and David. Some wanted to apologize. Some wanted to share their own experiences of being judged or discriminated against. Tony, the kitchen worker, told her about growing up poor and how people had always underestimated him. Rosa from housekeeping talked about being treated differently because of her accent. Rebecca waited until everyone else had left. Mrs. Martinez, I really am sorry. I was taught that the resort's image was everything. that we couldn't let just anyone in. It sounds so ugly when I say it out loud. It is ugly, Elena agreed, but you recognized it. That's the first step. My grandmother would be disappointed in me. Then make her proud moving forward. Help us build something better. Rebecca nodded, wiping her eyes. I will. I promise. That afternoon, Elena and David met with the resort's senior staff. Some were supportive. Others were clearly skeptical. The director of operations actually argued that their standards had made them successful. You're confusing standards with snobbery, Elena said calmly. Real luxury is making everyone feel valued, not making some people feel excluded. With all due respect, Mrs. Martinez, you don't have experience in resort management. You're right, I don't. But I have experience being on the receiving end of discrimination, and I have a degree in social work, which means I understand people. Right now, that's more valuable than knowing how to read a spreadsheet. David smiled. The woman he'd fallen in love with was back, confident, strong, unafraid. Over the next few days, word spread about the changes at Crystal Bay. Social media exploded. Some people praised the initiative. Others accused them of being too politically correct, of ruining luxury hospitality. But something interesting happened. Bookings actually increased. People wanted to visit the resort where everyone was treated with dignity. Families who had felt unwelcome at other luxury properties started making reservations. The resort became known not just for its ocean views and fine dining, but for its values. 3 weeks after the meeting, Elena walked through the lobby. Rebecca greeted her warmly. The security guards nodded respectfully. Housekeeping staff smiled and said hello. The atmosphere had shifted. Not completely. Change took time, but noticeably. A young couple approached the front desk. They were dressed simply, carrying backpacks. Rebecca welcomed them with a genuine smile, checked them in efficiently, and wished them a wonderful stay. No judgment. No attitude. Just kindness. Elena caught Rebecca's eye and nodded. Rebecca smiled back. It was working. Slowly, imperfectly, but it was working. That night, David found Elena on their suite's balcony looking at the ocean. What are you thinking about? He asked. How one bad day turned into something good. How being hurt led to helping others. How maybe things happen for a reason. Do you regret it? What happened that first day? Elena considered. I regret the pain. But I don't regret what came after. If I hadn't been kicked out, we wouldn't be changing things. Those 17 complaints would still be buried. Nothing would be different. You're remarkable, you know that. I'm just trying to make sure nobody else feels the way I felt that day. David put his arm around her. That's what makes you remarkable. Below them, the resort glowed with warm light. Somewhere in those halls, people were learning to see each other differently, to value kindness over appearances, to understand that everyone deserves dignity. It wasn't perfect. There was still so much work to do, but it was a start.